Good evening. I'd like to call the village board meeting for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, May 15th, 2018 to order with roll call, please.
Cavelli? Here. Kraus?
Here.
Kostler?
Here.
McAlpine?
Here.
Betts?
Here.
Weinhammer? Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
It was perfect.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Brian, could you see if anybody signed in, please? I will now move to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I'm checking to see if anybody has signed in. Just the village board. Patsy, you want to talk during your session at the committee meeting? Okay. I have nobody that signed in for the village board. Is there anybody who would like to address the village board at this time?
I wrote my name down.
I don't have it. Did you want to talk to the village board?
That's why I wrote it down.
Oh,
She wrote on the committee.
No, whenever you're ready.
you could do it now, or if you wrote it on the committee, you could do it the next meeting, which is in a matter of minutes.
Well, get it over with.
Okay, we'll let
So
you.
I can sleep at night. I just wanted to share my feelings and my fears with what he wants to do.
Brian, could you move the microphone down for her,
Mr.
please?
Taylor. Woo. He's hoping to build 200 multifamily units over in what I call the Maplewood area, plus 69 townhouses on that 15-acre area. And I think that if it I don't think it's going to go through, but if it goes through, I believe in my heart it's going to be the biggest mistake that Cary's ever made, because that area is too small. There'll be hundreds of people living there, and there'll be hundreds of cars.
Mhm.
And in the morning when the people get up to go to work, those that have jobs, they'll get into those cars, and those cars will be all lined up, spewing out toxic, cancer-causing fumes that are going to be breathed in by the people who live there. So he better think about building a hospital while he's at it, because it's not going to be good. His plan may be good for somewhere else. Now, at one of the meetings here, it was brought up that he's built homes in Cary. I didn't know that. So I asked him, where are the homes that you built? And he told me, across Cary-Algonquin Road. Single-family homes. Not bad. Then at another meeting, one of our board asked him, would you be willing to lower the density? Quick as a blink. No, he said. You all heard him. No. He said if it's not the 250, which it was before, he lowered it now to 200. He said something like it wouldn't pay or it wouldn't be worth it or something. You know, so when he said that, in my mind, I went like this. Whew. That's the end of that nonsense, you know. It's not the end of it. I mean, I love Cary, and maybe somewhere else that would be okay, but to me, he should build single-family homes if he's going to build anything. Nice big lots like mine, 66 by 132, with some space left over for park area or something. That's a small area. Think about, I gotta read this. Think about how many homes, 200 multifamily units and 69 townhouses. It was in the paper. So anyway, that's my fears. I had to share my fears with you because he doesn't even live here. I don't think. So he's not gonna wake up in the morning and say, wow, I could hardly sleep all night for the noise and the parties and the cars. Oh, wait a minute, he'll say. I don't live here, I forgot. I'll do that and then I'll go where I live. And leave him alone, because he'll be busy. Thank you for my thoughts.
Thank you, Barbara.
I can't help it, I love Cary so much. I've lived here for 57 years. I've seen a lot of change, and if this comes to be,
Well, I think, look, hey, Barbara? That's the first we're hearing of any of these changes, he has not presented anything to us. You'll be notified as soon as something comes here. You'll be part of the process. This is news to us. We have, he has not formally submitted anything to us with regards to what you're talking about, so.
really?
Really.
He went down a little bit. He said no. He said if it's not 250, he said something like it wouldn't pay or it wouldn't be worth, you know what he said. You guys heard him.
Yep.
So I thought, thank goodness.
No, we understand where.
It's gonna be the biggest mistake Cary can ever make, because it's too small for all those hundreds of people.
Right.
The petitioner's still evaluating how he would like to proceed with the
And
project.
cars.
Yeah. Well, do like you're doing. Stay involved, keep us posted from what you're hearing or whatever, and just,
Feasibility.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
I have not seen that yet today. Was this in today's paper?
It was in Northwest Herald. I didn't see it right away.
Oh, this was in April. Yeah, this is, he has not submitted anything to us yet. We don't know what he's planning. He's doing a feasibility study.
The other day, a friend of mine happened to see him and two other men walking through the area by the open area, in back of the single-family homes
Right,
on School Street.
right.
He was walking around there. You can have this if you want.
All right, thank you.
Scoping out the area, what he thinks is gonna happen.
Thank
I hope it won't happen.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to address the village board? Okay, we'll go ahead and close open forum. Moving to my report, I have a few recognitions. Mark Cherniak is on the agenda for 20 years of employment, but he decided to take a vacation, so he's not here to, so we'll catch up with him at the next meeting. And next we have Detective Rutson, who has been with the police department for 15 years. Oh my gosh. Do you want to meet me up here, Greg? Congratulations, 15 years, that's outstanding.
Okay. Detective Greg Rutson is celebrating his 15th anniversary with the department. He is currently assigned to our investigation section. He's a one-man shop. We have one detective and one school resource officer. He stays pretty busy in regards to that, but he also does our defensive tactics. See, the defensive tactics, our CPR, bloodborne pathogens. What else do you? AED. Well, that's part of your job in regards to, the detective assignment. So Greg is a person that's always willing to work, always willing to volunteer. He's an asset to the department, and just glad to recognize him on his 15th anniversary of employment here, and he should probably make sure he acknowledges his wife, because that's a big thing. So I always remind them that they're a big portion of this, but he's accompanied by his son and his mother-in-law as well.
Do you want to stand up, please? Thank you for sharing your husband with us. You're next, Courtney. Courtney is with us. She just finished her first-year anniversary. She's really started to prove herself as an asset to our Public Works Department. She's really making Eric a little nervous right now, I think. But, she actually stepped into a different role to help us with our roll call in that, since we don't have a village clerk at the time, and she's doing a great job. She's really kind of fit in really nice. She's got her own little form going in, she knows how to handle it, so I'll turn it back over to her.
Yes, Courtney's been with us, can't believe it's been a year, but she's definitely brought a lot of good energy, initiative, and innovation to our department. She's jumped right in and become a leading force in a lot of our technological advancements. She's single-handedly learned, mastered, and then trained others in our payroll system, which is now automated online, our work order system, which has our field staff out in the field, eliminating paper left and right. We're saving a lot of trees with Courtney here. And then GIS, can't speak enough about her GIS skills and bringing our mapping and our utility atlases and other asset management up to the 21st century. So we thank you for that and look forward to many more years of advancement.
Thanks, Courtney. I've been given one request to pull something off the consent agenda. Number 2, is there anybody else that would like to pull something? I
One
forget.
second, I'd like, for trustee report, I'd like to say that,
Okay,
can I?
sure.
Okay, that the chamber had done their Cary Grove pageant last night, and 3 lucky contestants had gotten a scholarship, and I want to say thank you to the chamber for doing such a great job.
Yes, Lainey Johnson's the new reigning queen for the next year, so she'll be at a lot of our events. So we're looking forward to it. So thank you again. Ellen is also the director of that as well. So thank you very much for the time you put in for that. Thank you. Back to the consent agenda. Was there anything else anybody want to pull off besides number 2? Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items number 1 and 3 through 12.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Oops, sorry. Costler,
Yes.
Betts,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Weinhammer. Yes. Cavelli.
Yes.
Thank you. And doubling back, I will consider a motion to entertain a motion to approve May 1st, 2018 Village Board meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Kim, was this yours?
Yeah. So the reason why I wanted this section pulled is under the discussion portion of where we talked about the second attorney bill. It has in here that trustee Cavelli stated she did not feel this contract should have been approved because it did not come before the mayor and the board. I would just like the record to reflect that it's actually, I recited the statute. It wasn't my feelings. I actually recited the section, 3.04.04. And I think it's important to distinguish that because in the following section, under fiscal expenditures, it does say under section A, prior approval by Board of Trustees not required. And then it talks about repairs, maintenance, supplies, projects, and equipment. So to me, the fact that contracts are spelled out in a separate section in and of itself that says no contract may be entered into without the authority of the president and the Board of Trustees, that is an important thing to distinguish between the two. And it is just not my feelings. That's what is in our code. And I want that in the minutes.
Does anybody else have any comments on that? I don't have a problem with making the amendment to that. Do you want to table these till the next meeting and bring them back, or do you want to just make the changes right now?
If we make the changes right now, I'd be happy to approve it. That was the only thing I had.
So could I clarify, you were referencing the village code, right? You mentioned statute, that's the
The
village
section.
code.
The section, yeah, sorry. Section.
Okay.
I want to read first what you were approving, so I don't want to approve it tonight. If Kim wants to make some changes, I'd like to go ahead and see what those changes are in writing and then approve them after that.
Does anybody have a problem with that? Could I have a motion to table these?
I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Betts,
Yes.
Costler,
Yes.
Weinhammer. Yes. Cavelli.
Yes.
McAlpine.
Yes.
Kraus.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and clean those up and bring them back. All right, moving on to items for separate action. I will entertain a motion to approve an appointment of Tom Smith to the Police Commission Board for a 3-year term.
I actually wanted to discuss this.
Well, let's
Before.
get it on the table first, so we
Okay.
can discuss it.
So moved.
Second.
What would you like to discuss?
Well, this is the first time we're seeing this. We haven't discussed it before. 2 minutes before I sat down, the information about who you want to appoint is given before us. I haven't had time to look through it. I don't know these people. And it does say that you do need the consent and advice of the board. So even though this is an appointment that you make, it still says with the advice and consent of the board. So I would like to table it so that we can look at the background of the people and kind of have our own thoughts and feelings on, what's happening instead of you telling us what to do with it.
I understand what you're saying. The state statute gives me the authority to make these appointments.
With the consent and advice of the board.
Correct. And I'm reappointing somebody that I've appointed in the past that I went through the interview process with
I
before.
don't know, I wasn't on the board before. So I have had no information, and I've requested information. I've also requested to put this on the committee of the whole, so we could discuss this.
Well, we're
I'm not
discussing
saying
it
no.
right now. We're
I
discussing
told
it
you,
right
I
now.
just got the information 2 minutes before I sat down. It's been printed off and sat at my spot, and I don't even know, I haven't had time to read through all these pages of things. You could have given it to us before the board meeting.
I understand that. I appreciate what you're saying, but I figure that the resumes and the background of the individuals is confidential because it's like a personnel-related issue, and I wanted to make sure that remained confidential and it wasn't,
So it's confidential information that we're not allowed to see any information about people before we go ahead and approve them to be on a board. That's ridiculous.
Well, like I had said, I'm acting within my authority to bring somebody forward that is currently acting in this role, who's doing an outstanding job, who is got an extensive resume, as you can see by his 3-page resume of what he's
I
done.
haven't had a chance to look at it.
Well, if you would like a minute to browse through,
No,
I'll
I
be
don't.
more than
I'd like
happy
to go ahead and have some time, like I had requested in an email to you about a week ago, to go ahead and have some information about this, or to discuss it with the board. I don't want you shoving somebody else down our throats. You've done this in the past. It's supposed to be with the advice and consent of the board. This is a board that has been elected by the population here in Cary. It is not about you, and everything lately has been about you, and I'm so tired of it. No, remember, you're going to go ahead and appoint who you want to appoint,
That's because it's within my authority,
with
Jennifer.
the advice and consent of the board.
Correct, but if I move to have this voted, they would be able to stay in even until I bring somebody,
Temporarily, not
until I
indefinitely.
bring somebody else forward.
No, that's the actually antonym of until you bring somebody with. It's not temporary. You want to keep anybody in as long as you want to. And that's not the definition, and that's not even how it's meant to be. The board is supposed to go ahead and make decisions together. It's not you who make the decisions for the board.
I disagree with you because there are instances where I'm able to bring something forth at my discretion.
With the consent and advice of the board.
I understand what you're saying. Is there anybody else that has any comments regarding this?
Is this his resume?
Yes.
Didn't you just say, though, you can't release the resume because it's personal and
Well,
confidential?
I didn't want to put it online or send it out. It's pretty extensive.
Well,
I mean, he's done an outstanding job.
one of them is, but one of them isn't.
Well-
And,
We could talk to that one the next.
and my only thing is, and we brought this up with the last appointment, is should we open it up to everyone? That's one of the things that we discussed last time. And I still feel very strongly that we should open it up. Just by glancing at this first person's resume, yes, I would agree. It does look very impressive, but like Trustee Weinhammer also said, I just got it, so I'm just looking at it now. So I would be good with tabling this as well until we have a chance to look at everything. But my preference would always be to open it up.
I
Have an
understand.
open process, and that hopefully these gentlemen would apply again.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying there, but I'm a big believer in continuity within our organization. These are not elected positions. These are people that serve voluntarily with their time. They've got extensive background. They are currently working very well with the boards and pensions as we have it right now.
But
We have
the ZPA is not elected, right?
the ZPA is not elected either, and I'm going out for a process for that because I have a vacancy. As I promised the board before, if I have a vacancy, I will open up a
So I guess
process.
that's my point, is that that's not an elected position, and we are putting that out to the public.
Because there's a vacancy.
You have essentially a vacancy here, right? That's why you're reappointing?
Well, it's not a vacancy, I'm reappointing. If there was a vacancy where somebody actually resigned or I removed somebody because they were not fulfilling their obligation, I would absolutely do an open process.
But
I have made that
Their
commitment.
term's over, right?
Pardon me?
Their term is up, that's why you're reappointing?
Correct.
Okay. That's my point, is their term is up, should go up.
But
just like
I
the
understand,
CPA is.
but you know, I'm not of the mindset if it's not broken, I'm not going to fix it. We have highly educated people performing an excellent job.
And no one is saying that these people aren't, so please let me make that perfectly clear, that I am not saying that these people are not qualified, that it's not that they're not distinguished individuals or anything of that nature. I said this with the last appointee, and I'll continue to say it with every appointee brought forward, is that I just think it should be an open, fair process to all. And that's been my feeling all along, and that will continue to be my feeling.
I understand, but you have to realize too that we have had several openings, a couple of openings that no one has responded to. And it's very difficult to get highly educated, qualified people to do the jobs that they are doing right now.
Very tough in a town of 18,000 people to find highly educated people. Did you guys hear that? It's really tough to find highly educated people here to apply for a position that's a volunteer position here in Cary.
Jennifer,
Wow, okay.
that's an inappropriate
That's what you just
comment.
said. That's what you just
They have
said.
to apply.
Right. It's
They
very
don't
tough to
apply.
find. Well,
They
why don't you give
don't
people a
apply.
chance? You're not giving people a chance.
Because, you know, Jennifer, I'm not going to argue with you anymore. We have a difference of philosophy with regards to this. I have great confidence in the teams that we have built over the years. They have done an excellent job, especially with our police commission. They have done an incredible job. And I would hope that you would give me the benefit of the doubt that I would never put somebody in a position that is going to do harm. He has served us tirelessly for the last 4 years.
This isn't about the people. This is about the process.
Well,
okay?
your concern right now isn't about the process.
I am very concerned about the process. You do not include us in it. You do what you want to do. You appoint who you want. You don't ask us about anything. I've been asking for information about this. I wanted to talk to the board about it, and I wasn't allowed to do it because Jake wouldn't take it off the agenda. I asked for it last week to be pulled so we could discuss it.
Because one trustee doesn't get to take something off of the agenda.
Okay, so would anybody else like to table this so that we could actually look at what we're doing or possibly read about what we're doing?
You know, I don't want to get into a banter back and forth with this. I would like to move forward in a professional manner. I've brought forth 2 excellent qualified candidates that have done exceedingly well within our organization. And I'm just asking for your advice and your consent to move this forward so we can move on to the next.
I have not been educated on who is even applying. I asked for this information. It was just given to me now. So if I had to actually vote for it now, I would say no. And I'd like
And
to
that's your
table it.
prerogative.
I would like to table it so that I could find out some more information.
You know, Jennifer, and you've known about this, but you haven't reached out and talked to me. You could
I
have picked
did.
up the
I
phone
sent
and
out
called
2
me.
emails to you.
No, not directly to me. You
I
copied the
copied
entire
you on,
board.
so you did
copied
receive
me.
2 emails from me on this.
You know, Jennifer, I've always made myself available for concerns and things that you
You
have.
did not
I
respond to my
prefer-
emails, either one of
I
them.
have responded to your emails.
No, the 2 regarding
All right,
this, you did not
We'll
respond
finish
to.
this up there. Now, can I get some
I'm
advice?
making a motion to table it.
Point of procedure, is there a motion on the table or
There's a
not?
motion on the
Yes,
table.
there is a motion.
All right, I'll second it.
I think it was already seconded.
It was
wasn't
already seconded.
Okay.
No, she just made a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Yeah, I don't know if that was seconded.
That wasn't seconded.
That's-
Mo- Motion to table, I'll second. I just don't see any urgency in this.
Just trying to move forward, trustee Kostler.
Can I just ask a quick question? And I'm not saying it'll change anything, but I just have a question. These are 2 appointments to police boards. Did you talk with the chief or anyone that's involved in these to see how those, I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea.
Yes.
Well, again, I'm just going to give my opinion on it. I understand if you want to read it, that if you don't know who the person is, I can understand someone wanting to do that. But the way I look at it is that our job is to look at the appointees that the mayor brings forward, and if they meet the criteria, and if he's done his due diligence with regards to checking with the boards and seeing how they're serving, and if it's all going very well, then I can certainly understand him wanting to reappoint the same people and keep them in there. I want to give people an opportunity. I look at it as if we have elections every couple of years, there are many within our village to get involved. And I don't feel it's an elected position, it's an appointed position, and that is the mayor, whoever the mayor would be, that is not only there obligation, but it's their responsibility to do
With the
that.
advice and consent of the board.
No, I'm not arguing with that. I'm just saying my whole opinion with regards to an appointment is that while I may not always have the same opinion that a sitting mayor may have, I may say, gosh, I like this candidate better or whatever it is, and that's happened to me before. But if they bring forth someone that is qualified to serve in that position, and they've done checking with, for example, the police commission and the police pension board, I almost think it's silly to say we're going to go out for an opening on that, because I think you're giving false expectations to your residents, because in reality, you don't feel that it is an opening. Just need to look at that. If we need time to look, if you say, hey, I want to look at these, make sure before I vote that I feel like I've been able to read their qualifications, then come back and visit it, then that's a different issue. I'm fine with that.
All right, we have a motion to table in a second.
I want to say something too. I agree with what Ellen said, and I agree with what you said. I think we don't see people knocking down the door to serve on these boards, okay? It's a thankless position. I don't think they even get paid for it.
Right.
However, it's an important position to have in the community. I think what is missed here is that this was an opportunity that could have mended some fences that have been broken in the village. Just a simple, I'm going to open it up, see who wants to apply, and then we move on from there. Because the previous person that was appointed to the police commission did not receive a positive recommendation from the board. So we have one commissioner serving. I would have liked to have had that person been able to bring back their resume, open it up, see what we have, and then we could have moved forward, and I could have voted in favor of that person, and things would have been good in my mind in terms of moving forward with the village. But again, we have one more opportunity that has been missed that leads to just more dissension among this board. And it's a disappointing situation, but I'm willing to move forward and approve this person tonight. So we have the motion to table on the floor.
Right, so if you're motioning to table that you will not, you want to move forward, you want to have this table to the next meeting.
Kraus?
No.
Hostler?
Yes.
Weinhammer?
Yes.
Betts?
No.
Cavelli?
Yes.
McAlpine?
No.
Mayor?
No. Reverts back to the original motion to appoint Tom Smith to the Police Commission Board for a 3-year term. Roll call, please.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Betts?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Put me in a horrible position. No.
Weinhammer?
No, I don't have any information.
Hostler?
Abstain.
Mayor County?
Yes.
Right?
What was the vote?
Oh, it would have been one abstention.
It was three
Oh,
three
three
yes
to
and one
abstain.
abstention. So it goes with
3
the
yes,
yes.
1 abstention.
Yeah, it goes with the yes.
So you can vote.
Well, we'll try this again with the Police Pension Board. I will entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Bruce Brandwine to the Police Pension Board for a period of 2 years.
So moved.
Second.
I understand where you're coming from. I do. Any other comments?
Yeah, I don't believe you, because if you understood where I was coming from, you would have allowed us to have information prior to the meeting. So your
Thank
words
you for your
actually don't
comments.
mean anything right now.
Does anybody else have any comments about Mr. Brandwine?
I would just, my only thing that I would like to vote on this after we got the pension report in the committee of the whole, because I haven't heard anything about the police pension for a year. So I'm voting for somebody that's on the pension board, and I don't know where the pension's at, so.
Mr. Brandwine's role, he's the attorney representing the village of Cary through pension funds, or through our pensions. He is the one that will be assessing.
He's a member.
Pardon me? Member. He'll be assessing injuries related to pensions, resignations due to pensions, that type of thing. He's not directly involved in the overall financial application of our pension board. His role is the legal portion of our police pension. Does that clarify things for you?
That helps, yeah.
So if anybody comes for a pension, whether it be they fell on the job or they're injured, he has got the litigation background that could keep us, keep the ship right when it comes to our police pension. It's a highly skilled position. Any other comments?
So this is somebody who's already on the board?
He's currently on the board. No other comments? Roll call, please, Courtney.
Weinhammer,
No, for the purpose of not having any information again. Go ahead.
Cavelli,
I'll abstain.
Pardon me?
Abstain.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Costler,
Yes.
Betts,
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to approve an ordinance creating Title 18 Parks and Recreation of the Municipal Code.
So moved?
Second.
Thank you. There seems to be a lot of interest in this lately with regards to our last meeting. So
There is, and so I would like to actually table this, because I would like to have a special meeting on this, because there is a lot of feedback from the community, and a lot of the community, I think, they want the opportunity to be heard on the matter, and I think it's also good for us to let them know what is possible and what's not possible due to finances, due to just, the situation we're in with some of the grading and everything else. So I would just like to make a motion to table this so we can have a special meeting to allow the residents an opportunity to learn more about this.
I second that, but I would like the chance for Eric to give his presentation so that people could view that. And then if anybody here has public comment, to take that before we move on.
does anybody else have any comments before we move?
I'd like to hear what Eric has to say first.
That's fine.
It's over to you, Eric.
All right, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor and Village Board. As we discussed at our previous committee of the whole meeting, we had before you the consideration of an ordinance that would establish some of the rules and requirements and regulations for the use of the new park facility once it is transferred to the ownership of the village. Before you, right now on the slide, is some of the goals that this ordinance would have. First and foremost, we want to ensure the safety and enjoyment for all the users of the new park facility. Type on my numbers there. The second item, obviously, is enable resident access to the park facility as soon as possible, knowing that the use and the development of this park facility will be fluid. Long term, there could be future amenities added. There could be additional uses incorporated. But one of the goals that we had felt was to allow residents the opportunity to get and enjoy the park facility in its current state. And in doing so, implementing regulations that get them out there now with the current trails and parking lot that are part of the requirements to be built before we take ownership, but also allow this code to be dynamic. And again, as we incorporate and plan for new facilities, like Trustee Cavelli mentioned, depending on the desires of the board and the residents and our financial means, this code could be something that we adjust moving forward. But what you see before you at least is a framework to allow people to get on those trails right away, enjoy the biking, the hiking, the views, and the fishing. Quick recap, this was the site map that we had showed at the previous committee of the whole meeting. The site would have that 60-space parking lot, the 2.5-mile loop of trails around the lake, and designated fishing areas that we propose. We would establish hours and dates of operations, dawn to dusk, which would mirror what Hoffman Park in the Cary Park District facility to the north has, as well as allowing warm weather use, so April 1st through October 31st. Then we would close a gate across the parking lot to avoid having to initiate additional safety measures and requirements during the winter months. And again, a summary of the other facility use regulations that we discussed previously. Trail use, we would suggest, at least initially, that the trails be allowed for use by the residents on bicycle or on foot. No unauthorized motorized vehicles. We would not suggest allowing cars, motorbikes, ATVs, and vehicles like that on the trails, again, for the enjoyment of the predominantly pedestrian-focused use of it. And we would also suggest allowing pets on those trails, given we have a very high-quality dog park just to the north in Hoffman Park, And this is a very wide, 15-foot wide trail, so there's definitely enough room for all these different users, pedestrians, cyclists, and pets to be sharing that property. Lake use, at least for the initial opening of the facility, we would like to get people down and have access to the water through the use of designated fishing areas. This is to, again, position them in the areas that are most desirable for fishing, but also the safest and accessible. We, just given that it's a former gravel quarry, there's a lot of steep slopes in the perimeter lakes, which is similar to other facilities of this nature, whether it be Crystal Lake, Libertyville, or around the Midwest. So we have some areas in mind that you see before you, and we would establish some gravel trails that would lead down to that water where fishing could be done, and with the possibility for some piers or docks that we would also be able to establish at a relatively modest cost.
And Eric, if you could point out too that where we'd be looking at the potential for the piers or docks,
Sure.
where those areas would be.
So initially, based on the most recent site visits and the permit plans that show the contours of the surrounding land, the two areas that are most likely to be most conducive to these types of facilities would be this main southern peninsula. We feel that there's room probably on both the northwest and the east side of that island to establish some floating docks. And then the southern area, where the trail actually approaches pretty close to the water for a certain spot, that is another likely candidate for the dock placement. And again, moving forward year to year, depending on the budgets and the desires of the board and the public, we can also expand these docks to other areas. But at least for the initial opening season, I would suggest we start with a modest approach and try a couple locations and expand it from there as the site conditions and the demand necessitates. Fishing, as we discussed previously, would be mirroring what a lot of the other lakes of this nature have implemented. The main reason for these types of regulations is to maintain the quality and the accessibility for the fishing for everyone. So catch and release is suggested just to, as the fish population matures, we want to make sure that there's an adequate supply of fish and a demand and a success rate for the fishing. In addition, water quality is another huge component that we want to maintain and preserve for this lake. Being a formal gravel quarry, it will, right off the bat, if you had a chance to see it, and you will see it hopefully later this year, there is outstanding water clarity in this kind of lake. We want to maintain that, preserve that, as is one of the most unusual characters of these types of facilities. So having no outside boats, at least in the initial run for the facility, helps us in controlling and providing a safe environment until we're able to provide the adequate facilities to provide for a boat launch and access to those boat launches from the locations necessary from the roadways. Those are some future projects that I think we should consider. And as part of the maybe outreach and additional meetings that have been suggested, that would be an excellent forum to gauge that public opinion on if that's something people want to see in the near future. But initially, given the infrastructure that's there, we would, at least for the start, suggest the regulations have no outside boats. That helps us also minimize invasive species, things like the zebra mussels, which everyone's probably heard about, that do have a drastic impact on the biology of the lake and ultimately the clarity of the lake. As I mentioned, it would be a fluid approach that we suggest. Initially, no outside boats for now, but it's something that as we move forward, whether it's the near future or long term, it's something we should definitely work together and consider. Landscape regulations, this is part of the draft code that we had provided to you as part of the packet. This essentially mirrors what we see in the Cary Park District facility ordinance and some other park district facilities. What it essentially encapsulates is the desire that users of the park cannot cut down trees, remove vegetation, and alter the natural landscape of the facility. However, there may be some situations that the board may want to consider with regards to the landscaping at the perimeters of the property, particularly along the borders where there's existing homes that back up to our park property. What we see here, and I put a copy of this on the dais as well for you to review, is that there could be an option to provide by permit residents or their contractors the ability to do some clearing of invasive or non-high quality vegetation that would otherwise block the property view of the new lake facility. Just as an example, this is the area that borders the Fox Trail subdivision. So you can see a lot of those homes with the rear yards back up to the lake property. There's what is shaded in green is an existing row of trees and vegetation that more or less has screened those properties from the farms prior to the mining and then the mine itself. In blue is the corridor where the existing water and sanitary sewer corridor exists currently. So there's no vegetation over that because that's where our water and sewer mains are located and situated beneath ground. And then after that is where the grade, there previously was a berm there, and now that has been graded and slopes downward toward the lake and the trails. So the option would be to provide the opportunity for a permit to have the area just immediately behind a property removed of that non-high quality trees or brush. We limit that just to the area immediately behind your property, just in case your neighbor prefers or really sees a strong value to the screening. So we wouldn't want too much clearing to go on beyond what's right behind their property. We would not recommend allowing encroachment then after that clearing of the private property, the backyards, into our village site. And that we would have a permit process just to ensure that the ability to tag and protect any high quality trees, particularly oaks, if there are any in those tree lines.
This came through via resident request, and we just wanted to talk to the village board about it and see if you had any thoughts on it either way about clearing vegetation. It's off of their property and just adjacent on the property, or on the property that the village would own and maintain.
And we would suggest a permit fee, and what that would do is primarily cover the costs of the brush removal. So included in the permit, we would recommend that if the resident or their contractor does the clearing, that the village itself conduct the brush clearing, mainly because in order to get access to the rear, they're going to have to go on the village property, and it's better controlled and I think better protected for the rest of the facility if village crews do the removal of the brush. And then while at the same time, while we're doing the removal, that would also serve as the inspection to ensure that the plans that were approved were adhered to and that the protected trees, if any, are still remaining. And with that, I would entertain any questions about the overall goals for the ordinance. And obviously, we'll consider the motion to table and solicit other feedback on the overall park use for the long term.
You know, before we do that, I just think, if you don't mind if I interject here on this, I think the basis for this right now is to get us up and running. We don't even own the property yet. It's not even been deeded over to us. And this will give us an opportunity to have some rules in place for when it does, and it gives the police department and community development some guidelines as to what needs to be done. It is my understanding that once we take over the property, then we can decide, you know, I think it would be an awesome opportunity to have an open house for this, or a special board meeting for anybody in the community that wants to offer some insight in this. I think that there's a lot of outstanding opportunities that we could do. Brian and I asked for a tour of it. We went last week, and it's incredible. It's very cool what they're doing, and it's going to be quite impressive. And I think we have an opportunity to really form an incredible jewel for the village of Cary. And I think that listening to what the residents want to see, do I see? Hey, I'm a powerboater. I'd love to have a powerboat on there, but that's not going to happen. But I think there's an opportunity here for us to figure out what exactly the community wants by listening to what the residents want to have. That being said, having some guidelines and some regulations in place for when we take over, we can only grow from that. At any given time, we can make an amendment. We meet every other week, and when we decide that we want to do something, bring in boats or paddle boats or canoes or designated swimming area. I'm just brainstorming here. Nothing has been decided here. This will give us an opportunity to listen to the feedback and decide how we're going to pay for these type of amenities and who's going to be able to oversee that. I think that was my inclination when we were first doing this, because I think this is the first step that we have in obtaining this piece of property, just so we have some guidelines so that there's some enforcement opportunities. And that's just what I had to say, and that's how I interpreted this when we first did this. So be more than happy to hear any other feedback on this.
I'd like to go ahead and call the motion to table it unless there's somebody in the public that has comment on this.
Does anybody in the audience would like to comment on the Meyer material property?
My name is James Thomas. I live at 648 Knollwood Drive. Thank you for listening, Mayor. My property abuts the project, and I've been waiting for them to finish anxiously so they'd be gone. It'd be a little quieter and maybe a little more dust-free. So my concerns are, you said in the summary of the regulations that there would be only open from April 1 to October 31st. So that eliminates the probability of maybe using the trail as a cross-country ski trail.
That's a good point.
That's number one. Number two, I didn't quite understand if I order the property, I have to get in my car and drive all the way around, or am I allowed to cross over my property line onto your project? Because I don't know anybody else that drives around.
Well, I would imagine if your property is abutting our property, you could walk through the back. I'm just assuming.
Okay, so that reg was to discourage trespassers, is that right?
Correct. We've had problems in the past listening to residents through this entire process that their people have been parking in fox trails along your street and cutting in between the two houses. That we'd like to have visitors that are from outside your neighborhood or the people abutting it utilize the park entrance. That's why we're installing 60 parking spaces, and that's why we would like to direct all the incoming traffic to that particular area. But I wouldn't see a problem. I'm speaking for myself. I would assume that you would be able to walk from your house if you're abutting the property. Maybe Eric knows better than I do. He seems a little antsy right now, but.
Just want to qualify.
Okay.
Oh, qualify?
Would you like to qualify that for me, Eric? Thank you.
No, we do want to encourage access, and we want people to enjoy this property for all the reasons Mayor Connick mentioned. But you'll recall the very first slide we had there, one of the main goals of the park itself is to ensure the safety and enjoyment. Some of the areas, depending on where you live, I don't know your particular location, but some of the slopes around some of the homes are relatively steep. Right. And there's a lot of native wildflowers and prairie plantings that are going in and around the park. Having people traverse in certain areas, I would be hesitant to say that it's 100% safe. When you come in at the desired and established access points, we can help ensure people get through and enjoy the property in and out safely. So I agree with what the mayor said, but qualifying that safety needs to be considered as well.
Where it's a direct route. Yeah.
Safety, right?
Yeah. What else do we have for us?
I know that it was part of the deal that Meyer absolved the cost of reclaiming it, and it did a fantastic job. And I just wondered what, if any, plans, that crew, that grading crew and that landscaping crew, maybe you could throw a barbecue for them over there or something, because they did a heck of a job. I mean, tremendous amount of work. And
That's impressive.
They hit it every day except when it rains.
Food for thought. Thank you very much for your comments. Enjoy the new lake.
Yeah.
Does anybody else like to address the village board on this topic? I have a motion on the table to.
I'd like to say something first
Go ahead.
before we vote on that or not.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think I'm a firm believer in engaging the community also. I think that's really important. We always want community input and feedback. But again, my question is, if we table it, is it going to prolong when the access, is that going to delay having access to the lake as quickly as possible?
Obviously, the sooner we have at least a base set of regulations, particularly the operating hours and things like that, the sooner we have that in place, the more likely we're able to hit the ground running. That's not to say if we don't have a vote today that we wouldn't be able to open it at the earliest possible point, depending on the schedule of us implementing the minor improvements necessary after we take possession. But yes, the longer we wait, it could impact our ability to let the public in.
Well, I definitely am 100% in agreement with doing an open house, to have people come in and ask those questions, because some of the things I'm hearing is about, and I get it, people saying, well, I'd love it to be like Three Oaks and Crystal Lake, and obviously educating the people on what the cost is to carry that, and I think that they're losing something like the tune of $2 million a year on that, and obviously, we need to make sure that people understand that. As much as that's wonderful, and we'd like that, we're not in a position that we can carry that cost. We're also a village. We're not Parks and Recreation. That's not what we're here for. I just look at it as if we want to get a template going and then modify it. To me, it's just a starting point and then modify it. Maybe we need to make some more modifications before we do this, and I'm certainly fine with that as long as we get to it as quickly as possible and get the community outreach and engagement and education process going at the same time.
Trustee Cavalli, could I ask you a couple of questions on this? Some of the basis of your concerns on the ordinance, the way it's written right now, does it relate mainly to the types of activities that are potentially restricted, or is there something else that you're concerned about that would prohibit, getting something like this on the books and then changing things as we go?
I guess the way I look at it is this has been ongoing for how long?
Long time, 10 years.
So a decade. I'd rather us do it the right way, like it does take a little longer to seek that input, but then to also educate. Because I think it's important, because there is a lot of people that, would love to have a Three Oaks Recreation Center, but with our finances, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's feasible. But I also think it's important to explain and to take that time and to walk people through the process, because there are people like James who've been waiting a decade for this project, and they're expecting a lot, and we want to give them the best possible product. So if it takes an extra 2 weeks, to me, it's worth waiting. We do it right the first time instead of just, pushing something through and making amendments. And I just think it would be easier and prudent to do it that way as opposed to what we're doing now.
Anybody else have any comments on that?
Eric, currently what are they doing in terms of dredging? Is there any dredging going on anymore? So that's finished. They're just working on the landscaping around the above grade water level?
Exactly.
Okay.
The actual mining and dredging ended according to the terms of the ordinance and the agreement, and it's only been the restoration in order to deliver that final product to us.
Okay.
We'll have a motion and a second to table this. Does anybody else have any other comments on this? Roll call, please.
Costler,
Yes.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Betts,
No.
Weinhammer,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine.
No.
And I had heard through this that there was a open house and then also a special meeting. Is there a desire from the village board for either one?
Whatever. you
Either
think would be
or.
better
Either
to-
I think an open house usually works better because that way elected
Everyone
officials
comes
could be talking with different people. We can put together some,
I'm open to anything. I just would like to seek there was a lot of banter back and forth in social media. And this is something new. It's exciting to the residents. And I just want to make sure that we get the input. And maybe we can do some of the stuff like Eric mentioned. Maybe it's not right now, but maybe it's in the future. And I think it's important, again, to just educate people on that.
I would actually prefer a special meeting, because then we can have it documented what people say, and we can go back to it and refer back to it when we want to have it discussed on changes that would be made.
That's fine with me.
I'm
I think I
fine with
like
either
that
way.
too.
All right, we'll have Jake work on a schedule for a special board meeting. Try to get as many, I can't guarantee that everybody will be able to be there, but we'll try to get a majority, absolutely, we have to have a majority of the board show up, but we'll get some dates set up so we can get this thing expedited.
Yeah,
That meets with everybody's.
I'll send something out to the village board via email here and get some feedback on some dates. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Administrators report.
Mayor, Village Board, I just had one update here. Our ED task force, our Economic Development Task Force, we've talked about it previously. They started out with 4 members. We had a couple members that had to resign. One had to took a job out of state, and the other had some personal and professional commitments here. So I'm going to be sending out an application here for potentially 2 new members for that task force. We'll have it on our website in the Cary News Weekly here this Friday. So if you have anyone that will be interested in it, certainly feel free to direct them to the website, excuse me, or send them an application. Thank you.
Chief Finland, anything for us?
Just a reminder that Friday is Cop on a Rooftop at the Dunkin' Donuts at 3 Oaks in Route 14. It's a fundraising effort that benefits the Special Olympics in Illinois. So our police officers will be out there from 5 a.m. till noon.
Thank you, Chief. Director Morimoto?
Just a few items for the board. First, as we mentioned at last meeting, brush collection, curbside brush collection is underway. The north and east side of town was done this week, and then starting on Monday next week will be the south and west side of town. Please visit the website for details as far as the parameters of the program. And secondly, this will be kind of the first introduction to something that is going to be occurring at 3 Oaks and the railroad tracks. The Union Pacific Railroad is going to need to perform some maintenance work in order to help ensure the proper performance of that crossing and their signals. They're going to need to close that crossing beginning Monday, June 4th, and they anticipate up to, basically up to 5 p.m. on June 13th. So it is an extended period of time that they're going to require that crossing to be closed. We're working with their contractor on the traffic control plan in coordination with the city of Crystal Lake. So we'll be getting details from them shortly. So as soon as we have that information on the detours and the parameters, we will get that on our website and do our usual outreach on Textcaster, Cary News Weekly, and the website. But I look forward to more information on that as we have it.
What are the dates again on that?
June 4th through June 13th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Simmons? Nothing? You're next. Thanks. Any future agenda items and discussion by the village board?
I just wanted to follow up on one thing from our last meeting, the $60,000 donation. Anything more on that?
I'm working on that.
Okay. And then the only other question I had was, and just because it came up tonight too, about the clerk position. Are we doing anything
We
with that?
went out for at least 60, 90 days to get people to come in. We had one applicant in it, and then she decided that wasn't what she wanted to do.
So, I mean, should we leave it up and keep it up? Because we are required to have one, right?
We have actually we have a deputy right now that Sue Green of our staff. She handled all the stuff to begin with anyway. So she's handling all the needs that we have.
We've got it on the list here for a future committee discussion here where we can talk to the village board about how you may or may not want to proceed with a village clerk position.
Okay.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.